real quick, before I hit stop recording, we should try to get a thumbnail because you were
Thumbnail.
flexing for the thumbnail earlier, and I didn't turn it on yet, so I don't even. I
That's
hate.
that 315 flex.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh, we should have mentioned that. I forgot you hit 315.
It's not as important as my son walking, so.
I mean, that's true, but I know you've been chasing that for a long time, so
It's
that's
been
awesome.
a long time.
Yeah,
Which maybe the weights at the gym are not real, but the rec center.
You crushed it, and you had more to give. All right, quick
yeah, I felt good. What should I do? I don't know.
I don't know. Do your flex. We'll call it the 315 thumbnail. All right.
Lovely.
All right. Now that I can crop that out and make a thumbnail out of it. Boom. We are recording and we are live.
Welcome, my lords, to the Well and Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us on the Walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and discuss life. It's great to have you as part of the fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. And it has been a hot minute again, like we talked about, since our last podcast, but super excited to jump in and talk about a very important topic that is near and dear to both of our hearts. Been kind of a debate lately on Twitter and other avenues of the social world. Is Lord of the Rings Christian? And we obviously have our opinions that we'll get to here in a minute, but just like any good brothers ought to do, we're going to babble like Butterbur for a little bit, so I'll check in with my brother Seth. How's it going? What is new? How, I don't know, what, besides your ears poking out, what's up?
I mean, that's nothing new. I thought you asked for something new. These ears have been
Right.
the bane of my existence for the entirety of my life. Honestly,
thanks,
not
Dad.
much is new. Just another week going through the grind. I'm done with my clinicals for this semester. I still have a bunch of schoolwork to do, but then I just have one last rotation left. Kids are doing great. We went to see the butterflies here at Dow Gardens today, which is awesome because you remember the butterfly pavilion growing up, I'm sure. And this place, a couple times a year, they raise butterflies in their greenhouse and then they let them all go out into the gardens when the weather gets nice enough. So there's 1,000 butterflies in this small little green room, and they encourage you to actually go up and like pick them up and like try to get them on your finger and stuff. And if they're docile enough, they'll let you pick them right up and walk around with them. And it's a really cool experience to watch the little kids just really enjoy that. Evie was terrified of them at first, but she finally got one on her finger, and it was like something in her brain just unlocked, and she was like, "Oh, this is incredible!" And she's running around trying to get them. And then Ben is just pointing and just every time they float in front of his face. So both Amanda and I had a great time doing that. So yeah, still on the school grind. Oh, I guess we did buy a car 2 days ago. The first
I saw that. What kind of car did you get?
We got a Toyota Highlander, actually. So
okay.
It's a very nice car. It's both Amanda and I are like, this is almost too nice for us. Like, this is we're used to driving. I mean, I've been driving a 2006 Sentra, and she's been driving a 2013 Rogue. Like, we don't have nice cars. But it was time to get something a little bit bigger, a little bit better, more reliable for Amanda. So we were able to find a pretty good deal, and we've been very blessed to be where we're at. So we decided to take on the car payment. But yeah,
dude,
otherwise
those things are great.
Yeah, it's a very nice car. I don't it's all, like I said, it's almost too nice.
Yeah, we were looking for that when we were about to have Ellis. We wanted a third row, and the Highlanders were a bit out of our price range, but we got kind of the equivalent on the Honda side of things, an Acura MDX from 2012.
We were looking at a lot of those.
We like very much, yeah. But the back row is tiny. I like how the Highlander, I assume yours is the same, but it's got the bucket seats in the middle and then the three in the back, which ours is the 3 in the front and then 2 in the back. And the 2 in the back are super small. Like, even because we had mom and dad out not too long ago, and so we were all able to fit, but putting Bear in the back was like, his feet were like up against it just was like, this is not a conducive thing if we're gonna keep having children and like if that has to become an actual thing. But yeah.
Yeah, we looked at a bunch of MDXs too, and it was on the list. It was either a pilot, a Highlander, or an MDX was kind of what we were looking at. It was mostly just
Yeah.
like we want something reliable that's going to last for a while. So
Sure.
glad that we were
Yeah.
able to find something that worked. So yeah. How about you guys? I know
Heck yeah,
you
dude.
said Baron's been sick, huh?
Yeah, I just started it last yesterday. Really, he started spiking a little bit of fever. He's still like pretty energetic and not too grumpy. Sat down and read The Hobbit for a little while together. I kind of I don't know. This is selfish of me, but when they get sick, they get extra cuddly and they don't really care what you do. And so he just snuggled up on my lap and
Oh
we read
yeah.
The Hobbit for a minute. And usually when he's not sick, I'll try to read it a little bit to him, and he loses interest after a little while. But as he was sick, he was just kind of laying his head on me, and I was just reading him. We were going through um, Queer Lodgings, which is Beorn, and
Yeah. Yeah.
the introduction of all the dwarves two by two. And I'm reading this as Ariel's putting Ellis down since they're in the same room. So, Bear's like leaning up against me in his bed, and Ariel's putting Ellis down, and I'm reading this out loud, and I just hear Ariel chuckling every time as Gandalf is telling the story, and Beorn's like, "Wait a minute, you can't count. What are you talking about?" That's and so
It's a clever
that
scene.
was really, oh yeah, it's one of my favorites.
You know
One
what's
of those things
funny?
that,
Real quick, did you realize that Gandalf did the same thing to Bilbo at the beginning of the book?
yeah,
So it's the same
it's
playbook that he
exactly, yeah,
used.
yeah,
Anyways,
and it's brilliant. It
yeah,
worked both times,
yeah,
two for two.
true, true, true.
But yeah, so that's a bummer. We were planning to do our first like family camping trip this weekend too, and so we're gonna cancel that. But hopefully, if he feels better by Friday or Saturday, we'll do a little backyard camp. We'll light a
Yeah,
fire and roast hot dogs and marshmallows, and then sleep in the tent or under the stars if it's nice. But um, yeah, so that's a bummer. But in other good news, Ellis is walking now, and he's getting around everywhere, and it's
I saw
it's
that
so
video.
cute to watch because he has to keep his hands up while he walks.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's a balance thing or what, but he just like waves his hands like jazz hand style as he's walking, and it's really cute. And I think it's helped Bear because Bear last week after mom and dad left, and then we had Ariel's mom in, and he was a menace. Like for whatever
Hmm.
reason, I think it was just over attention, spoiled by the grandparents and all that.
Oh yeah.
Um, Plus, like I said, he's had diarrhea for the past 3.5 weeks, so I'm sure you wouldn't be happy if you had that issue too. but
Right.
but he was like literally so mean to us and to Ellis, and so. But now since Ellis has started walking, he's like flipped a switch. He's like encouraging him and excited for him and happy for him. He still has his
Nice.
moments where he'll come up and push him over or smack him in the head or something, but it's a lot less. I think he sees him a bit more as like, oh, okay, now I can start hanging out with you.
Yeah, that's cool.
But okay, I was debating whether to share this or not, but I'll just go for it because this is the wildest thing that I think has happened in our 2.5 years of parenting. Okay, so Ellis, like he was walking around, he fell in our laundry pile, and he's just standing there. And this was after we'd all taken a shower together. This was yesterday morning, and so Bear and Ellis are both naked, and Ellis is like, he's crawling now, and so Bear straddles him, and I was like, okay, what's gonna happen here? And I hear Bear say these words: "I poop on Ellis."
Oh no.
Again, he's had diarrhea, so I rush over there, I pick him up and I yank him off of Ellis, and I'm like, "You what?" He goes, "I poop on Ellis," and I look over at Ellis and I like look at the clothes and stuff. Thankfully, he did not in fact poop, but he had straddled him ready to go. Like that was his plan. He was going to poop on his little brother, and he was so proud of it.
Oh, the mind of a
uh,
child. That's hilarious.
Dude, it was like I was like, "How is this our reality right now?" But yeah, so
There are
all
those
that to say,
moments where you
we're
just kind of sit there and you go, "Wait, really? Did that just happen?"
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was that was wild. So now we know. But yeah,
Oh
other than
man.
that, it's been good. Ariel's doing well. We had Easter, obviously, and that's a big time in our at our church. Had a lot of people, a lot of baptisms, which is really fun. A lot of really cool stories from people uh, giving their life to Christ, and we'll talk about that here in a second of just the faith and everything else. But there were just a lot of moments this past weekend that while it was a crap ton of work and because we had 2 services on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and I was gone all weekend and didn't really get to do any sort of Easter festivities with the kids or with Ariel. But one, it was cool because seeing Ariel being intentional with the kids and doing like a little Easter basket, and we
Yeah.
also had some friends that they went over to their house for like an Easter dinner, um, and so Ariel still got to have people to hang out with and celebrate with during the time while I was at work, but then also just kind of seeing why we do what we do, and the stories that came out of um, the Easter weekend with a lot of some of my students, and then some of just some random people that we'd never met that made some really big decisions, and so it's very exciting stuff. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool to see.
I
I
think
know
that's it.
that kind of Christmas and Easter, whenever people talk about like, I'm not really Christian, I'm a Christmas and Easter Christian. Like there is
Creaster,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, there's something something about that, you know. So that's cool that there
yeah,
are that many people that had those experiences. That's awesome.
yeah. It was pretty neat. But all that to say, we should probably jump into some riddles in the dark. What do you say?
Oh shoot, I totally forgot all about this. I am out of practice. Yeah, let me get my book.
Are you picking a character? Or are we doing?
Yeah, you're right. I'm tripping. I
I was
swear,
gonna say
like
I
I
don't have
went to
my
get a
book either. I can
haircut.
go grab it.
No, I went to get a haircut today, and I had just woken up from a nap because I've just been getting up at 3:30, 4 every morning, just awoken multiple
Ugh.
times. Like I'm just not rested at all. And I sat down, and the guy was like, "Do you wanna sit down and get a haircut, or are you waiting for somebody?" I was like, no, I swear I saw somebody sitting in that chair." He goes, "Yeah, it was me. I stood up. Do you want a haircut?" It's like, sorry, I woke up from a nap literally 5 minutes ago. Oh man.
Dang, brother. You
All right.
need a Zen or something.
I guess. I coffee just doesn't quite cut it anymore. Okay, let me think of a character. Huh. Okay, I've got one. Are you ready?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
I'll guess
So,
first, I suppose.
all
I've got
right.
one that I'm fairly certain you will not get. So we'll see how this
Fair
goes.
enough.
But
All right, ready
as I always do.
and go ahead and start guessing.
All right. Is this character in the third age?
Yes.
Only in the third age?
No.
Is this character in all 3 ages?
Yes.
Is this character an elf?
Yes.
Is this character a male?
Yes.
Is this character part of the Noldor?
Yes.
Is this character? I think you did. Did you pick the same one you did last time? Is this character in the shipwright?
No.
Okay. It's not Galadriel.
You asked if it was a male. No.
Oh yeah. Okay. And do you count coming back from the dead?
Sure.
So is it Glorfindel?
No. One more
What?
guess. One more guess.
You said he came back from the dead.
No, I said you asked, do I count that? Like, sure, I'll count that if you
No,
wanted to.
okay, well,
That's not telling who it
well,
is.
I thought that meant that he did. Okay, well,
All right, last guess.
I know. I'm thinking
Seriously,
it's
come
probably
on.
very obvious
It is.
that is it is it Elrond?
Yes, it is.
Hey, okay.
That's why I was like, come
I was
on.
trying to think because well, sometimes it's too obvious, you know. You're like,
I
well, it
was
can't
trying
be
to
the too
make it
obvious
obvious.
choice.
All right, so
Well,
you've
I'm
got
not
one that
with
you
my.
don't think I can get.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. You surprised me last time. You got it
Yeah.
before even the timer went off. So
All right, ready and go. Is this character a man?
no,
An elf?
no,
A dwarf?
no,
A Maiar?
no,
A Valar?
no,
An animal of some kind?
no.
See, this is the problem with you is I don't know, like an animal of some kind includes like a dragon.
Sure, but no.
What else is there? Is it Eru?
No.
This is you make it where this isn't even fun because like what else is there even to guess? It's not a man, a
I bet you
dwarf.
somebody's listening right now that's like, "Oh, I know exactly who it is."
Okay, just give me one hint then, because this is ridiculous. The time's up.
It's a female.
What could it possibly be? Okay, I give up. What is it?
It's Goldberry.
Okay. All right. Whatever.
I mean, what is she? What is she? She's
Nobody
not. She's
knows,
the
which is
river
why
daughter.
that's
She's. Sorry. Do you want to do it? I can.
no,
I can do an
no,
easy one.
no. We're
You wanna do
moving
it
on.
again?
We're moving on. That's just ridiculous. If you want to play like that, we could play like that next time.
Hey, this was your idea. You said anyone from the legendary.
All
That's how
right,
we
that's
set these
true.
rules.
That's true. That's true. All right,
And
let's
last time it
dive.
was too easy for you.
Yeah, it was true. Let's dive into the tidings of the fellowship. Do you want to? I know Luke sent that big text. Do you kind of want to read through some of the highlights of that real quick?
Genuinely have no idea where my phone went, but I
Let
think I
me.
actually can pull it up on my laptop.
It might be easier to read
Yeah.
off your
So
laptop.
he actually had some thoughts based off of our last podcast on hot takes, which I actually sent to one of my other friends too, and he was driving back from Missouri and was like, "Yeah, I'll listen to it." And he thought that your hot takes were not spicy enough. He
Uh,
said that in order to, this is Joel Burnett if you're listening, but he said that you should have, and this guy is hilarious, like he's incredibly witty. But he said it when you're talking about the poems and the songs, rather than saying, "Oh, maybe you should skip those," you should have presented it as in Tolkien is a terrible poet and you shouldn't read his stuff. And then you explain. He
ooh,
said you gotta like reel him in. You gotta really
I can understand that, but I just don't necessarily agree with the statement. You
no
know?
no 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 right. But so if you did listen to that podcast,
Yeah, not
obviously my
spicy enough. That's fair.
hot take was again I don't know if I completely agree, but Gandalf being a coward. Luke would say rather than coward, maybe overly cautious is how he would put it. Very cautious when it comes to receiving power. That's why he didn't take the ring. And decides to decline leading the White Council. Um, he also never wavers from his more divine calling from the West, which is to shepherd and guide as opposed to being an outright leader. So appreciate that. As far as skipping the poems and the songs, he says, I understand, but is hesitant. There's so much depth to them, but without knowing the context and history and the depth, you may not understand it. So it's up to the responsibility of the reader to do some research on that side, is what he says.
I get that for
And
sure.
he is with me when it comes to skipping the scouring of the Shire in the movies. He says that the point of the story is necessary to show the character development of the hobbits is well taken. However, I think that the character development took place before the chapter is already evident. He says the main point of the chapter is to show how complete the decline of Saruman was, not so much to show the character development for the hobbits, which is an interesting take.
Hmm.
He says, I think that PJ did a fair enough job of showing Saruman's decline, and including the scouring would have felt like another start just when the story needed to end. So,
Wow.
very insightful thoughts from Luke.
Yeah, thanks, Luke, for sharing. I could definitely see where he's coming from with that. That was the argument that a lot of people made is like it's just another false ending, and there's already been like 4 false endings.
Yeah.
So I get that
Yeah.
for sure. And I did want to mention one of our friends that listens, David Willett, actually sent me a couple voice messages saying that he was making his way through it. He liked it, and then he was like, "Yeah, you should probably touch on the Stephen Colbert news as well."
Ooh.
So I'll be honest, I don't really want to spend too much time talking about it, but
Yeah.
I'm just if he's involved, I'm just not excited. I'm sorry. Like
Yeah.
Mr. like dancing vaccines is not gonna adequately represent Tolkien's works. And I get that he's
Yeah.
a big fan and likes the books, but
Sure.
I
Sure.
have a very hard time believing that somebody of his particular worldview in a lot of different ways, and I don't know him personally, just whatever he puts
You
forward.
don't?
Obviously, yeah. But I just don't think that I don't think that mind is designed to understand the actual themes of Tolkien's works, as opposed to, hey, it's
Yeah.
just a really awesome story. I don't think he can get to the depth of it.
Mhm.
And those chapters that he wants to cover, for one, I don't know how you can remain true to the book and also remain true to uh, Peter Jackson's movies, which is what he said he wanted to
Yeah.
do. I don't think that's
Yeah.
possible, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's I my question is why? Like already we have
Yeah.
Hunt for Gollum and that's not even come out yet and we haven't even seen what their plan is for that and so all of a sudden we're going to jump into this thing too. And and again, I don't know. I'm a conspiracy theorist at times and I, can't help but think that this is on the heels of maybe he heard of Concerning Hobbits by Lane Smith and was like, that's a really cool story. I'm going to beat him to it because I'm famous and Lane's not as much. um, So I don't know if that's probably not true, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's weird that the idea of like Eleanor being the main character for
Yeah.
something coming out now. I mean, before Lane thought of it, I had no idea. I mean, I knew who she was just from reading, but never did my mind cross like she could be the main character in a story. And
I mean, to be fair,
so I don't
If Hollywood can girl boss, they're gonna girl boss. Whereas
know.
Lane is
Sure.
actually creating a legit story that's not just girl bossing
Yeah.
around, which is what I have a feeling that's gonna be.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. So, yeah, I'm not. It Rings of Power really made it hard to be excited about anything else coming out
Yes.
because I was really excited about that, and then
Hmm.
it was such a letdown. And now I think it's and you've mentioned this multiple times. We'll probably get into it a little bit in the meat and potatoes, but I just don't think it's possible nowadays. Hollywood cannot depict Tolkien the way it should be anymore because
It's
there always
not
has to be a
allowed.
message and there always has to be it's not allowed. It's not what people think people want to hear. When in reality, I think people are kind of done being, you know, smacked in the face with allegory, if you will, and everything has to have a message and representation, all that kind of stuff. Like, not that I'm saying those are bad things necessarily, but it's been so inundated. And when was the last time you just watched a good story, like a genuinely good story that you didn't be like, well, okay, they're pushing something, or okay, why did you have to add that, or I can't even think of the last time, genuinely. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like you said, I remember talking to you when we got the news that Rings of Power. We didn't even know the name of it yet. We just knew that there was going to be this
Yeah.
massive TV show. And I remember like texting you back and forth just like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe this? I'm so excited." And then we were like, "Wait, it's not coming out for like 7 years or whatever it was." I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
But it
They
was
just
such
bought the
a
rights.
like we were just sitting there going, "Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait." And then
Hmm.
I think in part we kind of did ourselves a disservice with the fact that we both dove into Tolkien more and read those extended works and understood the canon
Yeah.
behind everything. And then it comes out and it's such, like you said, such a letdown that I don't want them to make anything new that's Tolkien until they can kind of get over themselves. And I just don't see that occurring
Mm.
anytime soon. I would much prefer they just stop making anything with Tolkien's name on it. Because I know that they're just not gonna stay true to his themes and his stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I think I'll be interested to see as it comes out, more things come out, what it'll look like, but um yeah, I'm not excited necessarily. And if I'm blown away because I wasn't excited, great. But I learned my lesson with Rings of Power that I'm not going to get excited for something that's new until I actually give it a try. That way, if I don't like it, great, I got what I expected. But if I do really like it, then sweet, I'm blown away. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not.
I'm not looking forward to
Meh,
Hunt for Gollum. I'm not looking forward to this. Like it just
yeah,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
well.
But I will say, I mean, David, I mean, to your point, he's appreciate him listening.
Yes.
I think he'd be
Very
fine
much
with me
so.
sharing this just because he posted on Facebook. But they've been going through a tough time. I think his daughter's been in the hospital, and so be praying for
Yeah.
David if you think about it.
Yes,
It's
indeed.
a tough time. I mean, anytime our kids get sick at all, I'm like, okay, like this just changes your whole world. Like everything all your other responsibilities just seem to kind of fade away and are not as important. And so, obviously, he's been walking through the ringer. So, be praying
Yeah.
for David's daughter, but
Likewise,
and
for
him.
sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Hang in there, buddy.
cool. And because we are Christians and we are a part of a faith here, we're going to talk about that with the meat and potatoes today. Because, like I said, the topic has come up very recently that Lord of the Rings is not a Christian work. You probably already know our stance on this, but we're going to get into it. And Seth had an idea of starting with a couple video clips that actually I don't think I've even seen. And so I'll be interested to have, I guess, my first take on this. But Seth, why don't you go ahead and get that rolling?
Yeah, so this first clip is kind of what sparked the whole debate. So little backstory, this individual's name is Jack, I can't say his last name, Posobiec or Posobiec or something like that. He's a political commentary analyst person. And he actually, I don't mind him as a whole. He claims to be very Catholic. I believe he is. He's definitely on the right. And if you listen to our podcast, like we talk politics enough to you can make your assumptions, whatever. So that's to say I agree with a lot of what he says. I don't agree with everything. But he recently came out and just made himself look like a complete buffoon, just a complete buffoon. And he's been dragged for like a week and a half on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on X, because of, how dare I dead name Twitter. He was just dragged because all of a sudden he makes this comment, and everybody that is a Tolkien scholar, not even just somebody that likes Tolkien, has been going after him. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with Sam. I know that Sam said that he's going to edit this in the back,
in post, as they
in
like
the
to
post, as they say. But I'm going to roll the clip here. Sam, can you see what we've got?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to play about the first 40 seconds. So he's the gentleman in the bottom left here.
Narnia
Okay.
and Lord of the Rings were, kind of written almost not concurrently in a sense. And Tolkien always said that he didn't like Narnia because he thought that it was too overtly Christian. And
True.
I've heard people try to make the argument that Lord of the Rings is overtly Christian. And I hate to burst the bubble, guys, but you're just wrong. There's nothing overtly Christian about Lord of the Rings. There's no church in it. There's no faith in it. There's no Christ figure. There's none of these things. And honestly, Lord of the Rings, if it's anything, Lord of the Rings is overtly pagan.
Whoa.
All right. So, and I'll stop sharing.
Jeez.
He makes a lot of claims there, right? So with that, it kind of catches me off guard because, like I said, I think I agree with him on a lot of his takes, but I don't know why. I didn't watch the whole podcast. I don't know why they're even talking about this in the first place. But
Sure.
For him to make those claims basically tells me that all he's ever done is watch the movies. He has not opened the book. He has not thought deeply about it. He has not put any ounce of effort into understanding the story. Because to claim that there is no church, no faith, no Christ figure, and is overtly pagan is absolutely wild in my book. So Sam, real quick, before I jump into the next clip, I'm curious to see what you thought of that.
Yeah, I think to your point, if he has read the book, I mean, if he so here's the thing. So you said at the front that he is Catholic and that he has a faith. So that for me should tell me that he should easily be able to see the ties to Christianity within Tolkien's work. Again, if he's read the book, which I think you can get it from the movies, maybe not as much, but especially if you've read the books, it's overtly obvious if you yourself have an idea and understanding and a foundation of biblical principles and of our theology. But if you are pagan, so to speak, if you don't believe in Jesus and don't have any biblical knowledge or anything, you can make that claim, and I would be okay with hearing that from you because you just don't know. So to hear it coming from somebody who should know is very surprising to me.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems so, and if you watch the whole like 3-minute clip or whatever it is, one of his co-podcasters basically says that he's like, I haven't read the books, but I watched the movie and it felt Christian to me just watching it.
Yeah.
And then of course he pushes back. No, it's pagan. Which is interesting because he's like, yeah, C.S. Lewis Narnia is Christian, because there's a Christ figure. And it's like, yeah, but he's also, how, like, you're claiming Lord of the Rings is pagan, and then here you go with like centaurs and like all these different creatures that are overtly
Yeah.
pagan. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It just kind of got, he got dragged, and it was very entertaining for a while because he kept doubling down and doubling down and doubling down, and everybody, including the community note, just blasting him for it. But I wanted to show this next clip of Tolkien talking, and this is only a minute long as well. So let me share my screen with you yet again and swap over to this here. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on this as well.
In this world that you yourself have made, the complexities that exist mostly, it seems to me, outside the creatures of the world. There is an absolute evil and there is an idea of absolute good. Would you agree? Mordor, after all, is a principle of absolute evil.
You don't believe in absolute evil, but you believe in absolute good.
Yes.
Let's say,
You don't believe in absolute evil. Why did you create the Dark Lord, who seems to be the apotheosis of it?
But he said in the book that he himself was not evil to begin with.
Ah, he fell. Then, like Lucifer.
Yeah.
So you're...
Well, he's several stages down from Lucifer.
You do believe, then, that there can be a state of absolute good from which most people do fall?
He said, for instance, there's no religion in the book. There isn't, for reasons which are partly aesthetic, partly auctorial, and partly the history. This book, so-called Lord of the Rings, comes at the end of a long series of stories I've created in which the situation would be explained. Why there were no, for instance, churches, rituals, and temples, and so on.
Yeah, that's key.
So he says quite a few things in there that kind of catch my attention. But I'm curious as to kind of how that relates maybe to some of the stuff you were looking into.
Yeah, what he said there. First of all, I like how he explained, like, he's far down from Lucifer. Like, if we're gonna make a connection there, that was Melkor, and
Yeah.
Sauron's his little buddy, his little servant, and so I think it's funny. The guy's like, he's like, no, there's so much more that he probably doesn't even know yet, honestly.
Yeah, I think that interview was done in like
have...
62, so he probably had most of the Silmarillion formulated, but yeah, it wasn't published by any means.
Yeah, you kind of see that glint in his eye, like, yeah, there's a lot more, you don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was neat, but yeah, I mean, that's the point. He's explaining, like, there's. Yeah, he says that he wasn't evil to begin with, and there's the part where he explained there's a lot more that you're missing. I have in one of the letters, I'm bouncing around a little bit to figure out which one, because he even mentions about the orcs here in letter 269. He said, with regard to the Lord of the Rings, I cannot claim to be a sufficient theologian to say whether my notion of orcs is heretical or not. I don't feel under any obligation to make my story fit with formalized Christian theology, though I actually intended it to be consonant, which is meaning in harmony with Christian thought and belief. So therefore, okay, we have our answer already. He made it to be in harmony with Christian thought and belief. So even though there isn't necessarily a one-on-one Christ figure, we'll get into that in a minute, but he's saying he wanted it to harmonize with Christian thought and belief. He says it's asserted somewhere, book 5, page 190, where Frodo asserts that orcs are not evil in origin. We believe that, I suppose, all humankinds and sons and breeds, though some appear both as individuals and groups, to be, by us at any rate, unredeemable. And so he's saying, like, this has been like Frodo was wrestling with this, even, in this. And so I love just the way that he responded. Like, this guy obviously seems fairly intelligent, and it looked like he was trying to kind of trap Tolkien. Kind of reminds me of the Pharisees with Jesus, and Tolkien's like, no, I never said that.
I think part of it too is when you're looking at an interview in 2026, knowing what we know about the Legendarium that was not accessible to people at that time, those assumptions are fair to make, right? And I think that's Tolkien's way of like, there's so much more, like you said, that he just can't be aware of, the interviewer.
Yeah.
One thing that really stuck out to me when he goes through that, so when he asked, he said, there's absolute good and there's absolute evil. And Tolkien pushed back on that. And the fact that he pushed back on that, I think, is fundamental to Lord of the Rings, to his legendarium, and it's what really ties it into making it a Christian work, right? Because
Yeah.
there is absolute good, 100%. That's God. That is perfection.
Mhm.
That is what we are all striving to reach, even though we're going to fall short no matter what. But there
Yeah.
is absolute good, right? And Tolkien,
Mhm.
he says, yes, there is absolute good, but there's not absolute evil. And
Yeah.
what he's saying is that that's Christianity in a nutshell. Redemption is always accessible when it's sought out. And even at
Mhm.
the end of the First Age, Sauron had the ability. He was captured, and he had the ability to turn himself in, to pay for, his sins, to find
Yeah.
redemption, and to rejoin the ranks of the beloved ones, or whatever you want to say, the powers of the world,
Mhm.
right? He had that
Yeah.
opportunity, and his pride and shame pulled him further away from that, and he turned around and ran.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely not a, I mean, for anything to be absolute evil, like, yeah, there's evil in this world, and that is absolutely true. But to say that, I mean, you look at the thief on the cross, again, going through the Easter story just recently, at the very end of his life, he's like, hey, I recognize you are the Son of God. And
Yeah.
if there's any way possible, can you remember me when you enter into my kingdom, into your kingdom? And he's like, Jesus is like, yeah, truly I tell you, be with me in paradise tomorrow. Like, that is an incredible statement of, I mean, people hate to hear that. And even Jesus even talks about the parable of the workers who, the guy went out and he hired a bunch of people in the early morning and had them start working. Then he hired people in the midday and they started working. Then he hired people like 10 minutes before their shift ended, and he paid them all the same. And everybody got mad about that because, you worked longer and harder, you should get paid more, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But Jesus is saying it's salvation. Like, everybody can be redeemed in that sense. It doesn't matter how long you've been following me. It doesn't matter how long you put your faith in me. That redemption is always possible. And that's very obvious that Tolkien understood that and knew that.
Yeah. Completely agree. And we don't have to go down this rabbit hole too much, but just out of curiosity, I've always wondered, I don't know enough theology or the Bible well enough, or if this is even a thing, but I always wonder if in somebody's dying moments, if they are given one last opportunity, what they're being face to face with God, to reject him or accept him. And I want to believe that that is possible, because for many different circumstances, I played hockey with a kid that about a year and a half after, it was when I was out in Utah, I played with him. And year and a half after, I got a text from one of my old teammates, and he said, hey, just letting you know, this kid, he passed away in a car wreck.
Oh
And
man.
I knew that this kid wasn't a believer, but the kid that was texting me was like, he was, and they were roommates and good friends. And he's like, and we talked back and forth. He was like, yeah, I gave him a Bible. I don't know if he ever opened it or not. But it's one of those things where it's like, he was a good kid. And I want to hope that maybe he was given that Bible, maybe he glanced at it, and with his dying breath, as the soul is leaving the body, departing, that you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, capital punishment is something that gets debated a lot too. And my
Mm-hmm.
personal beliefs are, you have to atone for your sins in this life, but I pray for your soul.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's unchristian to believe in capital punishment, but I do believe it's unchristian to believe in capital punishment and want them to go to hell.
Yeah.
I want that person's heart to be redeemed, even, and like you said with the parable about working all day, half day, or part of the very end of the day, it's like, I don't care if they're at the very end of the day. I want them to have that opportunity, but yes,
Yeah.
they still have to pay for their sins here on earth. I don't know, what's your pastoral knowledge on
Yeah.
all that?
I tell my students all the time, like, there's natural consequences in this world to what you do. Like, your eternal consequence that's determined by Jesus, not you. You put your faith in Jesus, you put your faith, he is the way, the truth, the life, John 14:6. No one comes to the Father except through him. So that's your eternal consequence, justification, and then salvation comes through that. But the present consequence that comes with your actions. That's just a way of life. Like, you're not going to be able to go through and do the things you like, you just do whatever you want to do and expect there not to be any consequences. And so, yeah, I think we are called to reflect Jesus and his justice and his righteousness, and his grace and mercy. But to your point, that's, I think that the eternal salvation is, again, something that we cannot offer. And so therefore we leave that to him, but there has to be, present consequences and, just rational and logical consequences to our actions and, reactions to things. So
based on your understanding
Yeah.
of the Bible, do you believe that somebody who, like the thief on the cross, like, yeah, he accepted, but he did it verbally before he passed. Do you think, based on your understanding, that there is a moment of like kind of transition where your soul meets God face to face and has that opportunity? Or I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah, that's something that people debate a lot of. I don't think there is a clear answer theologically in the Bible. I think
Yeah.
you look at the truth that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. That doesn't mean that everybody is going to heaven. That doesn't mean that everybody, while they confess that, will actually do so in reverence and awe and fear of the Lord, like we should. I think that's more so a undeniable. I mean, because you read the book of Revelation and you see time and time again where Jesus tries to bring back his people he gives them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to, through the tribulations, to come back to me. Okay, now come back to me. And there's people that still won't. And even he
Right.
shares a parable in Luke, about Lazarus and the poor man. And I won't have time to get through all of it, but Lazarus is, basically like there's a rich man and a poor man named Lazarus, and the rich man he dies and he goes to hell, and but yeah, he sees Abraham in heaven and he's like, hey, can you go tell, my brothers, like, this isn't the way. And all this to say, like, that was a parable to show that people will reject Jesus regardless of absolute, like, in your face truth,
Right.
that this is who it is. And
I
so,
guess I'm talking more of the opportunity to have that,
Yeah.
as opposed to
I think-
saying everybody goes to heaven. I don't think everybody goes to heaven. I just mean
Right.
the opportunity to just one last chance of, wow, I didn't believe this was real my whole life. Now I know it's real. And then you have a
Yeah,
chance
and I
to
think-
make a decision.
Yeah, and I think there might be that, but I think there will be people that still be like, no, I can't accept this.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm not saying
so-
anything about the decision they make.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying
yeah.
the possibility of that. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. We are called to, give a record of our life. Like, it says, like, we have to kind of make a case for ourselves before God at that moment. And so any other answer other than, well, he's letting me in, pointing at Jesus, if we're trying to say, oh, all the things that I did, this is why I should be in heaven, that's not going to get you there. So,
right.
All that to say, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out at some point. We all will. So the second thing I wanted to touch on, kind of a hard transition back into Tolkien and why we believe it's Christian.
Yeah.
He discussed, after making the comment about believing in absolute good but not absolute evil, he talked about the reasons there weren't a specific church or a faith or a Christ figure in his works. And he gave 3 reasons for it. He said aesthetic, of Torah, and of history. We'll get into the of Torah portion because I had to look into that quite a bit because I didn't really know what he was getting at by saying that. But I think I came up with a pretty reasonable understanding. But when he said for aesthetic, I mean, he didn't want a direct allegory. He wanted a myth.
Yeah.
He wanted to immerse the reader into the secondary world and pull them out of the primary world. He wanted escapism. He wanted fairy story. If it's too allegorical, this is why he hated allegory and despised it, is because it snaps the reader out of, oh, hey, I'm in this secondary world, and then all of a sudden you're right back in the primary world. And I know you found something about that in the letters. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that as well.
Yeah, we've had this debate a couple times. Well, not necessarily a debate, but just kind of conversation with a couple of our different guests and stuff. But Tolkien said in Letter 165 that it being Lord of the Rings is not about anything but itself. It certainly has no allegorical intentions, general, particular, or topical, moral, religious, or political. Because again, people were also claiming that Sauron was Hitler and this was all based off of World War II and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, no, that's not true. I like how he puts this in. The only criticism that has annoyed me is one that it contains no religion, which is interesting, and no women. But that does not matter and is not true anyway.
He just dismisses it, just like, nah.
Yeah, it's not true, but it doesn't matter. It's not about this. It is monotheistic world of natural theology, which is an interesting take. And if I'm understanding this correctly, I mean, I'll finish the letter here and then get to my thoughts because I think it makes sense. But he says, it being Lord of the Rings is a monotheistic world of natural theology. The odd fact that there are no churches, temples, or religious rites and ceremonies is simply part of the historical climate depicted. It will be sufficiently explained if, as it now seems likely, the Silmarillion and other legends of the First and Second Age are published. I am in any case myself a Christian, but the Third Age was not a Christian world. And so he's saying here, like, first of all, he's saying, like, there's a lot more in the Silmarillion that you will understand, that you will get. There's the creation of the world. There's Eru of LOTR, who represents God, and you've got angels, and then there is worship, and there are temples. Go back to Numenor and how they were worshiping Eru, and then Sauron's like, no, you need to worship the devil, Melkor, and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of one for one there that makes perfect sense. But when he says it's a world of natural theology, if I'm understanding him correctly, and I mean, I'd love your thoughts too. I think he's saying it's obvious that there is a God. It's obvious that there's a creator who created everything and is at work in the world. Gandalf talks a lot about this. And so nobody really questions that. There is no atheism. There is no multiple religions. There is just God. And everybody knows that somehow. Is that kind of what you think?
Yes and no. No, in the sense that there are cults that arise, right?
Yeah.
In Middle Earth that worship other gods. And so I don't know that it's fair to maybe amongst the wise it's known, right? Like the powers of the world understand that. You're kind of touching on the second portion of what Tolkien said when he said aesthetic, the Torah, which I was like, what does that even mean? And so I dove into it, and I think it's kind of what you're describing right now, is that Tolkien wanted there to be a source of embedded truth in his world, not explicit. And that's where he differs from C.S. Lewis with Aslan being Christ and being resurrected and these one-to-one explicit truths, right? Yeah. As opposed to that, he wanted it embedded into the world, which is kind of what you're describing. If the message is too overt or allegorical, like I said earlier, you get stripped out of that secondary world. And so I think what Tolkien meant by the Torah is he wanted to have it's a biblical worldview that is told through mythology. So by saying the Torah, he was saying like basically like the Old Testament, how it sets up the New Testament in that sense. That's how I kind of interpreted it, is that there are fundamental truths in the Old Testament that then set up the New Testament. And then the second thing that you touched on a little bit there, about things getting explained later on and this and that as well, it kind of drives me to the third thing Tolkien said about history. So he said aesthetic, Torah, and history. And when he wrote this, he envisioned it being himself as like a conduit for a forgotten history of our own world, not somebody else's world, not a different world, but our own world. And in his mind, he said this in one of his letters. I don't remember exactly which one, but he said it was around 6,000 years before his time.
Pre-Christ.
Pre-Christ, exactly. And so it is pre-Christian. It is before all of that. And so it's a mythology, yes, but it's also pre-Christian. And the world that he created eventually breaks down into religion and Christianity and the church and things like that. So our world today is an expression of his world that he created in his mind, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we see that through the Numenorians worshiping and adoring Eru at Meneltarma, and the monotheistics. You have you have people calling upon the Valar, like you mentioned in the doc here, as one would call upon a saint, or an archangel or something like that. And so, especially again going back to like the Catholic view of theology and looking about like, yeah, we pray to Mary, pray to Paul, we pray to Peter, and which is a whole different tangent I won't get on right now. But yeah, so there's so many connections here that again, if you have any sort of knowledge just a little bit beyond the trilogy, it's impossible to not deduce his own uh Christianity,
Well,
his Christian themes, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But
like you said, Sam, you said if you already have the understanding, if somebody doesn't have a Christian understanding or worldview in the first place, that's what makes Lord of the Rings so beautiful, because the messaging is it can communicate that without it being overtly in their face to where they're turned off by it. That's what makes it beautiful.
Yeah.
However, if you have that worldview, like you already said, it's impossible to miss.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can the message of the trilogy really is hope. And I loved how I listened back, Benjamin, when we had Benjamin on, and he was talking about, you asked him what's one of the lessons you've learned from Tolkien, and he said that hope is indispensable.
Yeah.
Now that's obviously an overtly Christian lesson, but it's also, I mean, somebody who's not a Christian can take the same lesson and learn that, like, okay, there is hope in this world. It seems dark. It seems ominous. It seems like nothing's going right. But if I look and read in Tolkien's world, it seemed like that too. But there was always hope, even a fool's hope.
Yeah,
and
even a fool's hope.
And so, yeah, I mean, the idea that the overarching theme is hope, and there's no other. I could be wrong. I don't think there's any other religion that has the same kind of hope that Christians have. I was talking to a Muslim student at the school a little while back, and we were debating our religions, and he was talking about how it's about what you do. Literally, like Muslims, it's about what you do, and if you're good enough to go to heaven, and God decides that at the end of your life, you have no idea. So there's a hope that maybe you'll be good enough, that maybe you did more good than bad in this life, and therefore Allah grants you heaven, but you don't know. And that's the truth for Hinduism, the class system. You hope you were good enough to go to the next class when you're reincarnated, but you don't really know, right? Buddhists, it just means that nothing matters. Like that's literally no hope. And so you look at some of these major religions that contest Christianity. Christianity is the only one that we have absolute 100% hope in the assurance of our faith, saying, hey, we had somebody who came in and stepped into our place and gives us the right to be a child of God. And nobody gets to say, no, that's not true because of what you did. It's all about what you believe in and who you believe in and the work that he did on the cross. And so the absolute hope that we have will never diminish. And that is an underarching theme in Tolkien's world that you can't deny.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that even more a little bit later too. I'm glad you mentioned Benjamin, because he's a very eloquent speaker and he's a very deep thinker, and I learned a lot from him. And Jack Posobiec's point that there's no Christ figure, that's kind of the third one. He said no church, no faith, and then no Christ figure. So how could it be Christian? Well, here's how. And this is basically what Benjamin, I don't know, I'm sure you said you rewatched it, so you remember this, but he basically said, like, there's the priest, the prophet, and the king in Lord of the Rings. And so those are the three things that basically make up Christ, right? When he came to this earth, he was the priest, the prophet, and the king. And what Tolkien did is, instead of making a one-to-one allegory, here's Aslan, right? Like C.S. Lewis did, he broke that up into different characters. He put Christ-like aspects into different people and with a different journey within his story. So with the priest, this is Frodo, right? And I'm stealing all this from Benjamin, because he's the one that really brought this to my attention and really opened my eyes to this. But the priest is Frodo, and he's called, he's chosen, he is directed to carry this burden at his own detriment for others. It's a very priestly calling. And believe it or not, even in the end, even though he follows that priestly calling, he fails. And this is where he is saved by eucatastrophe, by grace, as Tolkien says. So even though he fails in the end, being the priest-like figure, he's redeemed. Secondly, you've got Gandalf, who is the prophet. He was sent by the Valar, like Sam mentioned earlier. He's to guide the peoples of Middle-earth. He's not to go in and just use his power and dominate and lead. He's guiding. He's the prophet. He's providing wisdom and direction, and he speaks truth. He doesn't create the truth. He doesn't make things happen. He just provides the truth and he speaks it. And then lastly, you've got the king, which is Aragorn, and he's the rightful king who returns from exile to heal his people. Right, the hands of a king are the hands of a king or the hands of a healer, or however Eoreth says that. LSR, right? So I know you had a couple thoughts in there, but I really wanted to break down why Jack is wrong in saying that there's no Christ-like figure. It's intentional. Tolkien is still putting Christ into the story. He's just doing it more overt, more subconsciously, so that the story flows and you're not removed from that secondary world.
Yeah, and this is all, I mean, Tolkien's just is kind of plagiarizing in a very creative way the book of Hebrews and the Bible, where we do learn that we do have a priest, prophet, and king in Jesus, and exactly what you mentioned. And so to give, it's again, you don't want something that's going to smack you in the face, like Aslan, or, some people even said, oh, well, Gandalf must have been Christ because he came back from the dead. Well, no, because he didn't sacrifice himself like Frodo did the priest. He wasn't the king. He anoints the king in Aragorn. He doesn't become the king. And so, but then there, like, between the three of them, like you mentioned, you have the Christ figure, you have the embodiment of Jesus. And to shout out Michael Jahoski, who's our first guest on the podcast a couple years back in his book, a long time ago. Haven't read all of it, but I did skim through it just because I figured he had some good things to talk about on this topic. Because his book is called "The Good News of the Return of the King: The Gospel in the Middle Earth." So I think he would agree with us on what we're talking about. But he says this about Aragorn: the descriptions of Aragorn serve as a recollection of the good news which we have an innate knowledge of. At the heart of many, if not most, great myths are the archetypes of king and kingdom. There is something primal and familiar about the idea of a lost paradise/kingdom and exiled king. This myth addresses a deeply hidden need or yearning in the human heart. Which I think is just a beautiful way of saying, like obviously Aragorn is representing that lost paradise that we long for. And the return of the king is the promise, again, the hope that we have as Christians, that Jesus will come back and restore his kingdom, the new heavens and the new earth, exactly what Aragorn does to his kingdom, restores it completely and puts it back to where it should have been, and prosperity and wealth and health and all the things. So shout out Michael, but it's obvious. Again, as somebody who has a faith, who has an understanding, I don't understand how you could have this opinion.
He should know better.
Don't have the faith, that's fine. I'll give you a pass. But yes, you should know better. You should, if you are a Catholic, especially, because, I mean, they really lean into the idea of priests and conduit between, God the Father and Jesus and stuff. And so, and the archangels and everything, like it's even more so because Tolkien was Catholic. So it should make even more sense to you if you're a Catholic. But man, that's wild that you still can't get it from that. But yeah, priest, prophet, king. Well done. Well said.
Yeah. And again, shout out to Benjamin, who, when he came on and talked about that, it just kind of like, obviously, like, wow.
Yeah.
Like you feel it, but then the way he articulated it made it just so clear to me. And I appreciated that.
Yeah. And Tolkien on the idea of Christian themes, his world is created on Christian themes. In letter 213, he said, or more important, I am a Christian, which can be deduced from my stories. So if it can be deduced from your stories, then the story is overtly Christian. Like, right. It has to be.
Right.
He said, in fact, a Roman Catholic. The latter fact perhaps cannot be deduced, which I appreciate. The one critic, by letter, asserted that the invocations of Elbereth and the character of Galadriel, as directly described, or through the words of Gimli and Sam, were clearly related to Catholic devotion to Mary, which is an interesting tie. Again, I'm not Catholic. I wouldn't have maybe made those ties, but
I can
again,
see
he's
it,
saying
though.
like,
Yeah.
But he's saying like it's obvious it's Christian. Maybe not super obvious it's Catholic, but it's obviously Christian. Another person saw in the waybread limbus equaling the Vaticum and the reference to its feeding the will and being more potent when fasting, a derivation, goodness gracious, derivative from the Eucharist, which is communion in the body of Christ, when you take that. And so, interesting. I never thought of limbus being similar to communion, but again, from a Catholic lens, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember if it's Merry or Pippin. To be fair, I think all the hobbits reference Limbus at some point in time. Actually, no, it's Sam. Actually, Sam's talking about like wanting a good meal, and he basically says like the Limbus, it'll keep you going even when you can't go anymore. It'll keep you going, but it doesn't fill the belly like a real meal does. And I think that's kind of exactly what that individual saw when he or she, I guess, I don't know who, wrote to Tolkien and said that they saw that correlation there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because communion is not meant to be a meal that fills you up. It's supposed to be something that reminds you of who your sustainer is. You're taking in the body and the blood of Christ. He said, "I'm the bread of life." And so you're reminding yourself of who is your spiritual sustainer in the same way that Limbus was a sustainer physically, but through the means of a magical way of sustaining. So,
yeah. So I don't know how you want to do this, Sam. I guess we probably should have talked beforehand, but I basically just kind of put down off the top of my head a handful. What do I have? Like 6 different like ways that Tolkien's themes are Christian innately. And we don't have to talk at length about all of them. Maybe we'll go every other one or something like that and kind of discuss them. But I'll just start it off here. So number 1 on that list was just at the very beginning, the fall and the original sin, which is Melkor, with the discord that he created during the music of the Ainur. And I'm actually kind of bummed out because I had the exact quote. I kind of want to find it from Eru. Let me Google this real quick.
Yeah, where he's talking about even what Melkor did will be used for my good or something like that.
Exactly. Yes. I had it, and then it disappeared. Let me see. Here it is. And so, just to paint the picture a little bit, the world was created through music, and Eru started the song, and then the Valar joined in and added things and made it more beautiful. And then Melkor, Morgoth, later on, the big bad guy of Middle Earth, he came in and tried to change the song and create it to be what he wanted. And it just, the way it's written is beautiful, but it's basically he just goes in and he overcomes all the music and he starts creating the world the way he wants it. And then Eru goes over top and they kind of play this game. And at the end,
it's a battle, really.
It's a battle through music, through creation. And at the end, Eru, the one god, right? He actually comes out and says, "And thou, Melkor, shalt see that no theme may be played that hath not its uttermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite. For he that attempteth this shall prove but mine instrument in devising things more wonderful, which he himself hath not imagined." And you're telling me that that's like, isn't that almost directly from the Bible? You know the Bible a lot better than I do. There's basically a scripture that says like, and all things will be worked for my good, right?
Yeah. Well, all things are worked together for the good of those who love him. It's in Romans 8. But yeah, but yeah, to the same effect of like, yeah, who has authority? God does. We can screw up, we can mess up, we can try to be selfish like Melkor and create our own things, but everything is under the authority and divine providence, which we'll get into in your second, of God. And for Tolkien's sake, Eru Ilúvatar, the one.
Yeah.
Which again, I guess if you haven't read the Silmarillion, like it's so obvious in Silmarillion. And I think again, looking at that interview with Tolkien, he hints at that. He hints at like it's
Yeah.
going to be real obvious here in a second when all this
Yeah.
comes out. So I guess I can have a bit of grace for people who don't have that, but even still, it's very obvious. So looking at let's talk about the mortality of men for a minute. And again, the debate of Finrod and Andreth is the most overtly Christian thing that Tolkien ever wrote, I believe. And I think that's something that Benjamin even mentioned too. But the idea that mortality is being a gift for men, that there's more to this world, that everything I already talked about, the hope that we have beyond this world, that we have glimpses of hell in this world as Christians, sure, but that's the closest to hell we're ever going to get. We have glimpses in this world of heaven, sure, but then that's what is saved for us for eternity. And that's hope. That is the bigger plan. That is the reason why we have been created, is for union with Christ and our Heavenly Father. And so Tolkien kind of hints at that with his work too. I mean, there is still this ambiguity about death, and you see the Númenóreans are scared of it, and that's why they want longer life, and that's why they wage war on the Valar, and even Andreth is like, doesn't seem like a gift. I wish I could live forever like you. Talking to Finrod, but there's people in our world that try to sustain their earthly bodies and their earthly lives and try to do whatever they can to hold on to what's in this world instead of letting go and trusting that the one has the best intentions and plans ahead of us.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is the mortality is a gift for men and men alone. And again, from Tolkien's perspective, he's a conduit for a mythology, a history that happened in the past. So it makes sense that men are the only one that receive this gift, because the world that we live in today, there are no elves, blah, 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 blah. And so elves have a distinct end. They are tied to Middle Earth. When Middle Earth disappears, their souls, their Fëa, disappear. They are no more. They have a certain end. And the elves, though they seem immortal, they always have this sense of dread in their head that in the end they don't know what's going to happen to them. Well, let me rephrase that. They know what's going to happen to them, and they know that they will simply cease to exist. They understand that.
Yeah. Their whole reasoning, their whole purpose is fulfilled.
Correct. And men, on the other hand, it's not known what happens to them. Basically, they go to the halls of Mandos, and they are kept there for a short period of time after they die, and then they leave the circles of the world, as Tolkien says. And what does that mean? I guess you can interpret it in different ways, and when you kind of see what Tolkien's thoughts were about the Dagor Dagorath and the final battle, things like that, to me it becomes pretty clear that when they leave the circles of the world, they're no longer bound to Arda, to Middle Earth. They get to join Eru. So that's why I think that mortality is considered a gift.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's important to note too that that's not the void. That's not the void where Morgoth and Sauron end up. The void is absent of Eru. The void is basically what we would say is hell, is the absence of the Father, right? And Tolkien doesn't really go into say like, you know, the Haradrim or the Southerners, Southrons, did they go to be with Eru when they die, or did they go to the void with Morgoth because they followed him? I mean, who knows? But again, going back to that natural theology, that idea that, I mean, there is this certainty that there is a God that's at play, and I think that plays into the fate of men too, is that the natural theology, that the world that he's created, the climate that he created within that. But
yeah. Jumping on to the next one here, we already briefly touched on it, but eucatastrophe, which is a term that Tolkien actually coined himself. He came up with this, and it's actually become somewhat ubiquitous in normal language, which is kind of cool that a philologist that studied languages, that created languages, all of a sudden created a word that is used, and people who have no idea who Tolkien is use the word from time to time. I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But basically, the way Tolkien describes it is that it's a sudden, unexpected turn that saves the individual from certain doom, or grace. And so this
Yeah.
is, the eagles rescuing the Thorin's company on the slopes of the Misty Mountains. There's so many different examples of it, but primarily the biggest one that everybody kind of turns to is when Frodo finally fails and decides to keep the ring for himself. The eucatastrophe in the grace that saves him was his grace towards
Towards Smeagol.
Gollum or Smeagol,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but eucatastrophe is embedded into Tolkien's world. You see it time and time again, and
Yeah.
it's basically just grace, right?
Yeah, and he even says in letter 89, I have this down in lower in the doc. I won't read it's a long letter and it's really good. I'll kind of skip through it a
If
little
you want to
bit,
read
but
the whole thing,
um,
I'm perfectly down to hear it.
sure. Sure. It's letter 89. He's talking to Christopher, his son, which is very important because he's the one that was able to publish the Silmarillion and the rest of the works. Because I actually did hear, I was doing some research and somebody wrote an article that said, well, Christopher was the one that actually posted all this other stuff. And so we can't really claim that to be Tolkien. And therefore, we don't know if Tolkien would have put it as like a, Catholic work or whatever. Okay, bullcrap. Let's read the letter. So letter 89 to Christopher, his son, he said, I am concluded by saying that the resurrection, obviously talking about Jesus, was the greatest eucatastrophe possible and the greatest fairy story, and produces that essential emotion, Christian joy, which produces tears because it is qualitatively like sorrow, because it comes from those places where joy and sorrow are at one, reconciled, at selfishness and altruism are lost in love. So I'll pause there. It continues because I read another article that said, well, Tolkien wasn't really actually that much of a Catholic. He was more of a social Catholic. He didn't truly buy into the resurrection and Jesus and all this kind of stuff. Bull crap.
That sounds like
You
some
can't write
Tolkien
something
Society
like that.
BS.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't read something like that and not know that Tolkien had a deep understanding of grace in his own life. And I mean, to say that joy and sorrow are one, looking at your savior who just died on the cross, the sorrow of that, but the joy that comes with it, the salvation, the eucatastrophe that comes with that.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's amazing. So anyway, he says, of course, I do not mean that the Gospels tell what is only a fairy story, but I do mean very strongly that they do tell a fairy story, the greatest. Man, the storyteller, would have to be redeemed in a manner consonant, again, harmony with his nature, by a moving story. But since the author of it is supreme, God, artist, and the author of reality, this one is also made to be the true primary plane. So that in the primary miracle, the resurrection, and the lesser Christian miracles too, though less, you have not only that sudden glimpse of truth behind the apparent fate of our world, but a glimpse that is actually a ray of light through the very chinks of the universe about us. And then he goes on to say, to descend to lesser things, talking about his story, I knew I had written a story of worth in The Hobbit when reading it, and after it was old enough to be detached from me, I had suddenly, in a fairly strong measure, the eucatastrophic emotion as Bilbo's explanation. The eagles are coming. And in the last chapter of The Ring that I have yet written, I hope you'll note when you receive it, it'll soon be on its way. He's talking about he's sending his notes of Lord of the Rings. It's not done yet. It's not written yet. That Frodo's face goes livid and convinces Sam that he is dead, just when Sam gives up hope. Eucatastrophe.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's no way that you could twist those words into like, he's not a deep thinker. He didn't really ascribe to those teachings. I mean,
yeah, absolute insanity.
wow. The way Tolkien's letters are, and it's fun to dive into them more. I mean, I've listened to the audiobook a couple of times, but every now and then when we start talking about this stuff and I actually go back and actually read them on paper, I have to reread things multiple times. Just the way he speaks is very in depth and it's almost foreign, right? Which is maybe why a lot of people have a hard time reading Lord of the Rings itself. But just the way he speaks really makes me think more as opposed to just reading the words on a page, right? Like I have to I have to try to understand what he's saying. And when I feel like I finally understand it, it's deeper than if it was just a very surface level comment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's mind blowing. You're like, okay, there's so much depth to each sentence. There's not fluff. Tolkien did not fluff.
Well, he
it was
did,
just all detail.
but
Well,
it seems
even with
relevant,
detail,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Some people would argue
It
that
seems
it's not.
purposeful.
Yeah, but it's very intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next
sure.
one on the list, I'll really let Sam dive into it primarily, but it's hope amid the suffering. He kind of already touched on that. But Sam, I know you made some extra points on there as well.
Yeah. So the idea of, again, the Christian hope amid a broken world, the hope that clings to Frodo and Sam as they're walking, that clings to Aragorn as he's continuing his quest to find Merry and Pippin. Then once he finds them, the hope that Frodo and Sam are still going, and so therefore we have to continue to do something for the hope for Frodo, as he says in the films. Like there's always this hope amid the suffering. We had how many was it? 2, 3 episodes? Was it just, maybe it was just one? I don't know. We did a whole thing on the debate of Finrod and Andreth, but again, being one of which seems to be the most overtly Christian works of Tolkien, and it's kind of hard to find, honestly. So again, grace to those people who have no faith and have not seen that Lord of the Rings is Christian yet. But if you read that, even if those who don't have a faith, I think it'd be very hard not to see.
A quick aside, I
he talks
still
about,
think it would be fun to just kind of read, like, I read a page, you read a page, and just like spend 2
Sure.
hours recording us reading it. I'm horrible at reading out loud, so it'd be way out of my comfort zone. But just like having a word for word reading session, like a book study, like study of that, I think would be beneficial at some point, because it's incredible.
Let's do it. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't know if we'd get probably wouldn't get in trouble for any copyright issues, but I'm not big enough for that. But I'd love to. I think that'd be great. But yeah, so looking at Estelle, the idea of hope is what they call it, or faith, as you put it. Finrod describes this beautifully, Seth put in the doc. Estelle Eos, not defeated by the ways of the world, for it does not come from experience, but from our nature and first being. If we were indeed the Urchin, the children of the One, then he will not suffer himself to be deprived of his own, which is almost word for word from the Bible, but not by any enemy, not even by ourselves. And so, I mean, I feel like as I'm reading that quote from Finrod, I'm reading the ending of Romans chapter 8. What can separate us from the love of God? Angels or demons, nakedness or famine, or destitution? Nothing can separate us from the love of Christ through Jesus, the love of God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Like he will not suffer himself to be deprived of his own. He has made the way possible. He has done the work for us to come back to him. Again, not what our Muslim friends believe of having to do good enough to get to God. He made it a way. He will not be deprived of his children, the people that he created. He's calling back to him. And so, very, very overtly Christian. Then I have another letter that Tolkien wrote, but I'll hand things over to you.
No, I'll let you jump into that, but just real quick, in that reading between Finrod and Andreth, they're comparing two different types of hope. And so there's two different kinds, which Amdir is considered looking up, or it's an expectation of something good is going to happen, which is seen through experiences and trends, and you're like, okay, X equals Y, so we're going to just go down this linear path. I've seen this happen, therefore I expect this to happen, and I can have hope in that, right? Whereas Estelle is faith. And when you think about this, Estelle is the name that Gilrain gave Aragorn when he was born. He is hope, but he's not just hope. He is faith in the core of the world that Tolkien created, that something will be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thankful that you interjected with that too. For whatever reason, I was looking at Amdir and I was like, Did he mean to write Andra? Like I was like thinking that was a person for a second there. I
You're
was
good.
confused.
You're
But
good.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
a few
absolutely right.
misspellings in there, and I saw you stumbling over it, and the part of me is like going to go back in the doc and fix it, even though you already
No, that's
got
good.
tripped up by it.
But the letter that I pulled out to kind of connect with this portion is letter 142, which is the most common letter that people refer to that probably this guy got dragged through the mud with. Which again, I read an article that somebody said, and I don't know how you can make this assertion, but that Tolkien was trying to pander to his Christian audiences so that he could sell the book. Bull crap. He had already made a crap ton of money off The Hobbit. He was being begged to make a sequel. He did not need people to like his stuff. They were going to like it. They were going to buy it, Christian or non. Like again, anyway. But letter 142. The Lord of the Rings is of course a fundamentally religious and Catholic work. Okay, we could have just started with that and ended the podcast an hour and a half ago. Unconsciously so at first, but consciously in the revision. So, okay, yeah, as he's creating it, was he thinking about his faith? Maybe not. He was just kind of diving into his imagination, his own experience with his faith, and it just kind of came out. And then he realizes, oh yeah, no, this lines up. And then through revision, through the Silmarillion, he's like, yeah, I'm going to put it in. He says, that is why I have not put in or have cut out practically all references to anything like quote unquote religion, to cult or practices in the imaginary world. For the religious element is absorbed into the story and the symbolism, which is everything that we've already said. The religious element, the Christian component, is absorbed into the story and the symbolism. Not allegory, the symbolism. It is the story, which again, if you are a Christian, should be very, 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 very obvious. However, he says, that is very clumsily put and sounds more self-important than I feel. For as a matter of fact, I have consciously planned very little and should chiefly be grateful for having been brought up since I was 8 in a faith that has nourished me and taught me all that little that I know and that I owe to my mother, who clung on her conversion and died young, largely through the hardships of poverty resulting of it. Again, that article said that he was only Catholic because mom was Catholic and that he was just trying to do right by her and all these things. That was the way he was holding on to his mom. No.
But do you realize what he just said? So to completely combat that article that you're referencing, he's saying that he is thankful that he is brought up since he was 8, knowing these things. But not only that, he's basically saying
Nourished.
like it's put into the story and I couldn't even help it at first. And then I started realizing that it was going in and I put more of it in. But like,
yeah,
come on.
Yeah, it's who he is. And there's no separating the two. So I looked up. I was like, is George R.R. Martin Christian?
There's
now
no
obviously
way.
there have been Christians who have created things that don't seem Christian whatsoever. But I was curious: is George R.R. Martin Christian? He grew up Catholic, and then kind of renounced that Catholic and became agnostic / quote unquote somewhat like atheist. And so, again, I've not read his books. I've not watched his stuff. I just can't stomach it genuinely. Here it's a great story. But the idea of hope and this, from my knowledge of it, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody who's gone through the whole series, if I'm wrong about this, but there's no essence of Christianity. There's no essence of faith within his work because he is not one. It is not who he is.
Like you said, I don't know the whole storylines. The little bit that I have consumed of that, I forget the whole name of it, but the Game of Thrones series primarily. The little bit that I have consumed, there is no Estelle embedded into his world. His world is morally gray. The good people make bad decisions and become bad guys, and the bad guys do good things. And there's no, I don't really know a better way to phrase it than there's no Estelle embedded into his world. Everybody is out for their own good, and there's no higher process trying to bring order to the world through the fabric of the world itself. It's all just people vying for their own position.
Yeah, which is very, true
it's
to
very
his
agnostic
experience. Yeah, in this world, because many, 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 many people live that way. How can I get what is good for me? I'll be nice to somebody as long as it benefits me, but as soon as it doesn't, I'm out. which is again opposite of what we're called to as Christians. And again, like I said, I'm sure there's Christians that have put things out there that are not Christian whatsoever. But just looking at kind of the two big fantasies of our world in Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and comparing them, and you're right, there's no hope, to my knowledge. Again, I could be completely wrong. If somebody who and I'm fine if you like Game of Thrones. I'm not saying you can't like it. I'm just saying it's not Christian because he wasn't Christian. Lord of the Rings is Christian because Tolkien was Christian, and it's impossible to separate his work from that. And it's beautiful the way that because he even tried to keep it out in a sense. Like he even tried to C.S. Lewis is like, oh, I'm all in, and that's good because that was his. He wasn't 8 when he turned to Christ. C.S. Lewis was a grown man when he turned to Christ. He was overflowing with this new hope that he just received and just understood. And so he's like, man, I want to share this in every way I possibly can. And he's pushing it out through his story and through his other works.
And they're both necessary. I mean, C.S. Lewis is gonna attract. I mean, yes, there's a lot of overlap in the people that like both, but it's going to be more applicable and drawing in a certain type of person that Lord of the Rings may not when it comes to a spreading the message type of scenario, right? Like it's very overt and in your face, and somebody that is searching for something might see that and go, oh, I want to dive more into that. Whereas somebody that is opposed to it at first and doesn't, maybe they were burned by religion or whatever, they see Narnia and they'll be put off by it because they see the allegory. Whereas they might read Lord of the Rings and go, I feel better inside. I don't know why. I don't understand it, but I really like Frodo's character. Why do I like Frodo? Aragorn. Wow. What is it about Aragorn?
Yeah.
I feel good reading this story. I feel better. Why? And then that's a different path than getting slapped upside the head the way Lewis does it, which is, again, isn't a bad thing.
No, it's fantastic. And it's very, very encouraging to the Christian. There's a lot of Estelle hope in his work for us who know it and can enjoy that. I'm excited to read it to our kids, when they're old enough to understand it. But
I just finished That Hideous Strength again, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's I don't know if you've ever read that one. It's fascinating. It's a great book, but I just finished it again for the second time, and it's the same thing though. C.S. Lewis can't help himself but make it a straight allegory, which is fine. Yeah. It's just two different styles of putting the message out there.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what did you want to touch on here? You have the exile of the elves from Valinor. Let's talk about that for a second.
We've been going long here, so I'll just be real quick on this one. Basically, the elves, after leaving Valinor, they're kind of in a perpetual state of being lost, and they're trying to return to that perfect state, but they've been exiled. They've been banned. They're not allowed to return to Valinor. And that to me kind of represents like our desire to have a union with God. And when we do something that breaks that union or pushes it away, you realize that something's missing and you want it back. And it's not a perfect tie-in, but I just see the elves as always searching for God in a way, right? Like they're trying to find a way back to the perfect land, and they know what they had and they want it back. And it's not a perfect allegory, as it shouldn't be, right? For Christ, because with Christ, the second you say I want in, he lets you in. Whereas the elves had to be pardoned to come back to Valinor, but they're still searching for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we can be real brief on that. I know we've got like one more and then a quick clip, and we'll start wrapping it up. It's already been going for a bit.
Yeah. Which, I mean, a conversation like this, it can be as short as, like I said, read that one letter and call it good. But there's
true.
I think it's important for the people. Again, I think a lot of our listeners, I mean, we have, I'd say, about 100 regular listeners, which is great. Shout out to all you guys, especially our friends across the pond. Like, why don't you let us know what's going on over there? But I think the majority of them, I don't know, maybe I'm making speculation, but maybe haven't dove into the letters and the Silmarillion and maybe it's more just like the casual fans who are interested in more so the depths of Tolkien that hopefully we can provide in a way that makes sense. I hope.
Yeah.
So while it can be such a simple one sentence podcast, I think it's important to dive into all this because it really does give you a better appreciation for Tolkien as a person too, and where he's coming from. The last thing that I kind of wanted to add on, you talk about moral responsibility, free will, how it's evident, but there's divine providence and underpinnings. You know, each character has this idea of free will, but all things work for Arrow towards the end, and we already read that quote that you had mentioned. But I think of those moments with the divine providence, and I look of obviously the fall of Morgoth, like there's obvious like God intervenes, the fall of Numenor, God intervenes. But then you also look at some of the smaller things and these quotes that I'm going to bring up. So Gandalf to Bilbo and the end of The Hobbit, he says, "You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck, just for your sole benefit?" Again, Gandalf being the prophet, right? He is a messenger from Eru, and he understands from the Valar, like there's higher powers at play that are orchestrating by divine providence these things that are happening. And then he continues on talking to Gandalf or talking to Frodo in the Fellowship, saying that behind that there was something else at work. Behind any design of the Ringmaker, I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, not by its maker, not by Sauron, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that's an encouraging thought. Again, the idea of divine providence.
Estelle.
You know, something happened that the ring did not intend. Estelle, yeah. Like God is in the details, in the minutia of the story, but that's also true in our lives. He's doing things that it seems like luck, it seems like coincidence, things that you could just throw up to, oh well, yeah, that was a surprise, but cool, it worked in my favor. Like, no, I genuinely believe that this is God working through us, and he cares about the small details. You read through the Psalms and you understand who God is through how David understood who God was. And he cries out to God asking for the big things in his life, but also the small things in his life. And so God has this insane ability to be this divine mover while also allowing us to have the gift of free will, or maybe perhaps the perception of free will that we've talked about in length previously. But like we make decisions and sometimes we mess up, we fail, we fall. But he's always there in the same way that he's always there for Eru is always there for his characters. You look at Frodo and Sam and Shelob's Lair, you know, or the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Easy tie in there. But anyway, the themes of Christianity, while not outright allegorical, cannot be denied. God is good. He wants good for his people, so he intervenes in good ways. That's kind of how I signed off on that thought.
No, that's great. The Gandalf to Frodo quote, the one Gandalf to Bilbo quote, I love that just because it's kind of cheeky, right? Like he's like, "Come on, really?"
Yeah.
But it's also, and I know I'd have to look into this. I know Tolkien went back and revised The Hobbit a little bit after writing Lord of the Rings, and I'd wonder if this was something he revised, because he says,
I don't know,
just for your sole benefit. Like, if he wrote that before writing Lord of the Rings and it wasn't revised, that's wild, right?
It's insane. Yeah.
But I wonder if he did revise that. I don't know. But the Gandalf quote to Frodo is just the way Gandalf delivers that, the way it's said in the movies is actually very, very powerful. The way like his voice gets softer and he's like, "That's an encouraging thought." And it's just, it's like, oh, there's something bigger at play than myself, than this current mission that we're on. There's something bigger. And yeah, that's encouraging. And I think that that's something that when you talk about religion, and I think Christianity is the best at this, but any religion really, when people believe in something bigger than themselves, you have less depression and anxiety and fear of life in general, because it's not all on your shoulders. And like Sam has talked about at length within Christianity, we have that Estelle, we have that hope in something that we truly believe in. And so do you fear X, Y, and Z? It's like, well, yeah, in this life, but in the end, I know that we've won. So yeah, it can be terrifying, but do I need to be depressed? Do I need to be anxious? I mean, not really, right? Like, we're human, you go through those things, but it's an encouraging thought to know that there's something bigger than me.
Yeah, and this is something that I sneak into almost every single sermon I preach to our students. Is the little that's an encouraging thought because it is so powerful the way Ian McKellen delivers that line. And it's like, and that's
Yeah.
an encouraging thought. It's in the moment where he's saying, "I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had ever happened." And of course, that's not exactly how it was in the books, but in that moment, like again, that's beautiful writing by Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson, all them. But Gandalf is saying like, no, that's it's an encouraging thought. All these things have lined up. All this pain, all this struggle has lined up for the good, the betterment of mankind, of Middle Earth, and that's an encouraging thought. And so, the like I was preaching through the idea of like again going back to Hebrews where it says, we don't have a high priest that hasn't been already tempted in every one of our way, like every one of the ways that we have. And then I'd add on, and that's an encouraging thought.
Yeah.
That's an encouraging thought that Jesus, our high priest, has already walked through everything that we have walked through, similar pains, similar temptations, similar struggles. And yet he was perfect so that we didn't have to be. And that's an encouraging thought.
That's an encouraging thought. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, I do it all. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. Nobody's ever called me out on it, but I put it in devotionals that I write. Yeah. But it's such a good way to be like, hey, and that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I one of my favorite quotes by far. I don't know. So we'll watch this, just the last clip. It's about 3 minutes long. It's from that same interview. I think I started. I forget where I started. It might repeat a little bit of that same minute that we already watched, but the way Tolkien talks about his writing and why he did it and things like that, I just thought was incredibly beautiful. So let me go ahead and share my screen here and flip over. Sam, are you able to see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me flip over to this. And here we go.
So that you had literally invented the world before you even wrote The Hobbit.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Why?
Why? I don't think I could not really think why one wishes to create a thing like that.
Well, then, all right, how? What started it? There must have been a point at which quite suddenly, like God, you chose to make the world like that.
This is pretty important.
It was an illustration. That's what I think. Because, as I've said elsewhere, I think that if you wish to push me back into what semi-theological or philosophical, I think because being made by a creator, one of our natural faculties is wishing to create. But since we aren't creators, we have to sub-create. Let's say we have to rearrange the primary material in some particular form which pleases us, which it isn't necessarily a moral pleasing, it's partly aesthetic pleasing.
Then you make this distinction between what pleases aesthetically because it's balanced and what pleases morally. God, we may assume, made a moral rather than an aesthetic choice. Is this too great an assumption?
It's one would require a very long time to debate, but I should have thought that we are dealing with something which we're only looking at facets of one whole, but certainly an aesthetic whole is surely. An aesthetic facet is as strongly to be predicated as a moral one.
In this world that you yourself have made, the complexities that exist mostly, it seems to me, outside the creatures of the world. There is an absolute evil and there is an idea of absolute good. Would you agree? Mordor, after all, is a principle of absolute evil.
I don't believe in absolute evil, but I do believe in absolute good.
Yes.
Let's say...
If you don't believe in absolute evil, why did you create the Dark Lord, who seems to be the apotheosis of it?
But he said in the book that he himself was not evil to begin with.
Ah, he fell. Then, like Lucifer.
Yeah.
So you're...
Well, he's several stages down from Lucifer.
You do believe, then, that there can be a state of absolute good from which most people do fall.
It said, for instance, there's no religion in the book that isn't, for reasons which are partly aesthetic, partly auctorial, and partly the history. This book, so-called Lord of the Rings, comes at the end of a long series of stories I've created in which the situation would be explained why there were no, for instance, churches, rituals, and temples, and so on.
If you were to be remembered as the man who has made the Lord of the Rings, would you rather be remembered as a man who has said something or as a man who has made something?
I don't think you can distinguish. The made thing, unless it says something, won't be remembered.
Thank you.
The made thing, unless it says something, won't be remembered. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know it was about a minute of the same thing that we already shared earlier, but I love the way he frames that, and I love how he describes just, yeah, like I can't actually create, but I can subcreate. I can rearrange the material into something that is pleasing to me, and through doing that, we're fulfilling a natural thing that is ingrained into us, and that's what he wanted to do.
Little bit of Owlay in him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he did write Owlay, right?
All right, yeah. No, it's beautiful. I think he's absolutely right. Like, we are made in the image of God. You know, Genesis says that at the very beginning. Male and female, he created them in his image and likeness. And so therefore we have the ability to create, and that's why you have so many things. And now you can go into the debation of the takeover of AI now and all that things and what that does to our ability to create and our creativity. But that's a conversation that we don't need to have right now at 10 o'clock
before we sign
as
off.
We are wrapping up.
Before we sign off, can I just say and by am no means an eloquent speaker. I wish that language was still given the same amount of, I don't know, like I said, I'm not an eloquent speaker. I don't know the right word, but the same amount of respect in a way as those two gentlemen speaking to each other. The words that they use, the cadence that they use, it's beautiful to listen to. Tolkien sort of mumbles at times, and it's hard to understand, but his wording structure, his sentence structure, the choices of words that they use, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it seems like our language just keeps devolving more and more and more into how quickly can I get this point across without even acknowledging the effort it went into creating this language.
Yeah. Oh, Treebeard would hate our language nowadays.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
Far too hasty. No, but no, I completely agree. There's, I mean, slang and things that our students will bring up that I'm like, well, what?
Which they had they had slang back then as well, but like just the way they spoke.
Yeah, Tolkien coined cooked before anyone else ever did. He said something, I think it's in the Hobbits, like, oh, we were cooked.
No, it's in the Two Towers when the orcs, I think it's the Mordor orcs talking to the, or maybe it's the Uruk-hai talking to the Mordor orcs, and they're like, the whiteskins will get you, you're cooked.
Yeah. So he was above his time for sure. But no, I 100% agree. I think, and that's what I try to do on this podcast. I don't try to sound pompous or anything, and I'm certainly not. I don't have the vocabulary knowledge for that. Ariel does more so than I do, and sometimes she'll say a word that I'm like, what does that even mean? Or I'll accuse her of it not being a real word, and then I end up losing when we look it up on the internet. but in the same way that I think there's a certain weight that you should give your language, your words, and respect to how you are trying to, get a point across. And again, Scripture talks a lot about like how powerful the tongue really is. It's the rudder to the whole body, and it can light a fire. Like it can spread like wildfire, is what James talks about in his letter. And so when people just throw out words, and especially when it comes to like coarse language, I mean, I used to cuss a lot, and now I don't. And partly is the culture that I've moved to, but also just the expletives that came out were not helpful. It was of no use to get my point across. Now, I think there's times, and it can be, I think there's times when you can use that in a way that is emphatical, that it emphasizes your opinion, or what you're trying to get across in a good way. But especially like comedians that just use it for kind of like shock and awe factor, or even as a filler word. Like I see this all the time with the high schoolers when I'm there. The F word is just a filler word for a lot of students. It's like you're saying the effing and you're just like, why are you doing that? How, like, that's not intelligent. I think that's a sign of unintelligence personally, but I think I'm sure every generation has felt that to some degree since the dawn of mass education, of literacy across the globe, obviously, which is fairly recent, but still.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thanks for diving into this and doing all those research into the letters and stuff. I thought the conversation flowed pretty well, and needless to say, I think Mr. Posobiec I think that's how you say it, I don't know, is quite wrong in his assessment of Tolkien's works and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, 100%. It's overtly Christian. While it should not by any means replace your reading of scripture if you are Christian. I find myself catching myself, like, oh, I could just read Lord of the Rings because I should read the Bible because that's what's going to help me grow my relationship with the Lord. But in the same way, Lord of the Rings, as we've talked about in length, the symbolism created within it, like you said, it makes you feel good when you read it because it reminds you of a hope in a dark world. And even Sam's speech, which isn't in Tolkien, but Peter Jackson had the idea of understanding like there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. Yeah. And again, that's another message I think of the trilogy that we can surmise very, very easily. And that's something that I hold on to on a daily basis too, that there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for, until he called me home or he comes back and makes all things new. So.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Very fun conversation.
Yeah, good conversation.
No, I love nerding out, and this is what I do for a living. So, getting to defend Christianity is very exciting to me.
I will say your yapping has gotten better, or maybe better's not a good word, not a proper word. You have become a grade A yapper. In a good way.
Good. I appreciate it. Likewise, I mean, looking back to some of our first conversations, it was kind of just silly to hear us like talking back and forth, and but it's a good conversation. I think it's important to have, and hopefully, as you're listening to this, if you've got thoughts, please send them our way. If maybe you aren't a believer in Christianity, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts and your take, because like, what has it done for you? I'm curious. If you don't believe in Jesus, you don't have a Christian foundation, what has the trilogy done to you? Like Seth said, does it just make you feel good when you read it? Does it give you some hope in this world? Does it, how does it land on you? I'd be genuinely very, very happy to hear from you in that. And likewise, if you are Christian and it helps push you along in dark times, like it has for me when I moved to Kentucky and didn't know anybody and I needed a familiar place to go to, it reminded me that there is some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. So all that to say, this is the part where we are Gondor going to call for aid. We're going to bust in the halls of Mediceld and shout, "Gondor calls for aid. Will you, Rohan, answer?" So if you enjoy the podcast, please light a beacon of your own by sharing it with fellow friends and fans, liking, subscribing, and leaving us reviews. And if you want to share your Tolkien story or any thoughts on Estelle or Hope or our hot takes or anything that we've discussed, please don't hesitate to email us at wecpodcast@gmail.com or find us on social media, or like David, send us a video or a voice note or whatever it is. We'd love to hear from you guys. We want to do this as a fellowship. So we don't really know where the path will take us from here on out. We're just kind of moving along as we go. So if there's anything that you specifically would love to hear us talk about or would be interested to hear our insight on, please, again, just let us know. But we thank you very much for joining us for some well-earned comforts. And until next time, we bid you a very fond farewell.
Real quick, before I hit stop recording, we should try to get a thumbnail. Because you were flexing for the thumbnail earlier, and I didn't turn it on yet, so I hate
that 315 flex.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh, we should have mentioned that. I forgot you hit 315.
It's not as important as my son walking. So
I mean, that's true, but I know you've been chasing that for a long time, so
it's
that's
been
awesome.
A long time.
Yeah,
which maybe the weights at the gym are not real, but the rec center.
You crushed it, and you had more to give. All right, quick
yeah, it felt good. What should I do? I don't know.
Do your flex. We'll call it the 315 thumbnail. All right.
Lovely.
All right. Now that I can crop that out and make a thumbnail out of it.